Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Destin City Council, March 18th, 2019, to order. I don't think we have a pastor tonight, so if everyone would stand, we'll have a moment of silence, and then we'll go with the pledge with Mr. Oberdeer. Thank you very much. Skip.
Ladies and gentlemen, join me as we salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, before we get into the agenda approval, we have a special event that we must accomplish first, and that is to swear in our new permanent city council member, Mr. Stephen Menchel. And to do that will be our city attorney, who now has the authority to do such a job. Steve? Congratulations, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, agenda approval. Did we have a couple things that needed to be changed? Would you like to start, Lance, or?
Mr. Braden was going to add mine.
Sorry, I was busy. We have the one item, it's the FEMA assistant funding agreement. We need to add, if we can't put it on the consent agenda, just for documentation that I guess the mayor needs to sign so we can get funded our money back from FEMA for dock repairs from down at Joe's Bayou.
Is that the only thing? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
All right, see no further discussion. Vote is unanimous. So moved. Thank you, Mr. Braden.
The other item I'm requesting council to add is just an item under my agenda that says East Pass administrative action.
Can I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Any discussion on this? Seeing none. Unanimous, so moved. All right, that takes us right into our first item then. Item 1A, approval of the minutes of January 22nd, 2019 regular city council meeting.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on these meeting minutes? Seeing we need copper top batteries. Do we do it? All right.
Aye.
Vote unanimous, so moved. Yeah, it finally worked. All right. All right, item 1B, approval of minutes of December 17th, 2018, regular city council meeting.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none? Ayes have it. So moved. Now we're going to, we have a presentation from Overview of the Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance, City of Destin Partnership. Miss Allison McDowell is going to present that. Allison, good to see you.
Thanks for having me tonight.
Turn on your red button so you can go live.
Okay. Thanks for having me tonight. I appreciate this opportunity to share a little bit, reintroduce myself in some cases, or introduce myself and our organization and the partnership between CBA and the City of Destin. Oops. Okay. So just a real quick overview. This is the Choctawhatchee watershed, and as you can see, it's quite large. It's over 5,000 square miles. It's fed, the freshwater source is one main river on the east side of the watershed. Most of the watershed is in Alabama, and the major land use is agriculture, forest, and grasslands. Most of the urban use, though, is in Okaloosa and Walton counties. The Choctawhatchee River is the fourth largest river in Florida in terms of flow and drainage area, and the third largest in volume. And the Choctawhatchee system supports a rich array of aquatic, wetland, and upland ecological communities and plant and animal inhabitants. The Bay is definitely the foundation of our culture, our way of life, and our economy. Now, I know all these things, I'm preaching to the choir. Y'all all know as well as I do how valuable our Bay is to our way of life and our economy. But these things have actually been studied and evaluated, and in 2006, an economic analysis of the contribution of Choctawhatchee Bay to Okaloosa and Walton counties was done by the Haas Center at the University of West Florida. And you can see that in 2006, the Bay accounted for $2.9 billion in local sales, 36,000 jobs. Tourists spend $1.6 billion annually, and of course that number's gone up a lot since 2006. And of course, tourism and water-related activities are, and of which those are just a few on the slide there, are very important to our economy. So up to 80% of recreational and commercial fish and invertebrate species that we land here in Destin spend part of their life cycle in Choctawhatchee Bay. Water has an impact of over $500 million on appraised property value. And so given all that, we ask the question, who cares for our water? Well, Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance does, for one, and of course the City of Destin does as well. Our mission is to sustain healthy local waterways through monitoring, education, restoration, and research. And we're a nonprofit organization, and we have been around since 1996 as a program of Northwest Florida State College. And we get our nonprofit status through the college's foundation. So our program areas, again, monitoring, education, restoration, and research. And here's some of our accomplishments from the 2017-2018 fiscal year. We educated 3,000 students each month. We monitored 132 water quality stations with 34 volunteers, saving local agencies over $100,000. We had an oyster gardening program where we transplanted 12,000 oysters from 21 different oyster gardeners, citizen scientists who are raising oysters on their own docks. And we completed 4 acres of living shorelines and 4,700 linear feet of oyster reef restored. We did a lot more, but that's all we could fit on that one postcard. So CBA and the City of Destin, we've had kind of a unique partnership over the years, since our inception in 1996, really. Some of the highlights include the original Clement Taylor Park stormwater restoration, Joe's Bayou shoreline restoration, and since 2009, we've had a contract for NPDES permit fulfillment. So what is NPDES? National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, and there's a lot of words up there, but it is a regulatory phase of the Federal Clean Water Act. The city is, it's an EPA permit that's administered in Florida through the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And it regulates non-point source discharges from 3 potential areas. The MS4 is the one that we're concerned about here in the city. You are a holder of MS4 and you're required to have the NPDES permit and to accomplish several tasks related to stormwater abatement. So we contract with the city to help with compliance on the city's notice of intent for this permit. And our tasks, the ones that we perform, fall within the permit categories of public education and outreach, public participation and involvement, and pollution prevention and good housekeeping. So for public education and outreach, we provide monthly programs for 200 third graders through our Grasses and Classes program at Destin Elementary. And the kids learn about how native shoreline plants are important to cycling stormwater and keeping stormwater out of our bay, and they actually grow those plants in their classrooms and help to plant them along shorelines to restore salt marsh. Another component of public education and outreach is that we do a lot of presentations to different groups within Destin. Destin Forward class, we speak to them every year, and the other examples are Destin Rotary and the Destin Charter Boat Association, different garden clubs and snowbird organizations. And we talk about how important, how stormwater affects our bay. More public involvement and participation. We run the International Coastal Cleanups, 1 to 2 a year within Destin. This is us on Noriega Point one year, and we do that with the assistance of city staff. We also coordinate monthly citizen scientist water quality monitoring at 5 stations in Destin waters, and we collect that data and we report that to the city of Destin, and they have that to report with their permit. And for pollution prevention and good housekeeping, we coordinate oyster shell recycling programs and monofilament recycling programs where we collect monofilament and keep it out of the waterways to keep it from being entangled with wildlife and fishing gear. And we send that off to a recycling plant that uses it for things like recycles it into carpets. For instance, the carpet in the Emerald Coast Convention Center is made out of recycled monofilament. And we collect the oyster shell and we leave it out to dry, and after it's nice and clean, we bag that up and we use it to restore oyster habitat in Choctawhatchee Bay. So we look forward to the future of our partnership, and we hope to take care of our waterways into the future with the City of Destin. And I thank you for letting me come tonight, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I have one for you, Allison.
Yes.
Do you have the same partnership with the Walton County Commissions, seeing how they don't have a city down here on the bay?
We have a similar partnership with Walton County, but it's more focused, and it's focused strictly on the coastal dune lakes.
It's just been brought to my attention, some of the stormwater runoff issues that are starting to become apparent with all the construction and stuff over there. I was just wondering if you guys were sensitive to that.
We are sensitive to that, and we have some proposals to Walton County as well to kind of look at those kind of issues. And of course, the upcoming estuary program, the Choctawhatchee Estuary Coalition, I think it will be well equipped to address some of these region-wide stormwater issues, because as you know, stormwater is not respectful of the city boundaries, it's, so what happens in Walton County can affect here, just as what happens here can affect somewhere else. So it's good to look at these things from a big picture.
Thank you very much, because as we know, the water mainly runs east to west.
Yeah.
So anything that's happening over there is going to affect our
That's right.
community here.
We're what we call a river-dominated estuary because our river is so large, and it's just, like you say, it runs east to west for sure.
Okay, Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. Do y'all try to monitor the grass beds, if they are thriving and or not thriving?
We do seagrass monitoring every summer, and we do that in concert with the Fish and Wildlife Research Institute, which is a state organization but that is focused on seagrass, amongst other things. And there is a decline in seagrass over a period of time, but then it'll also come up, it goes up and down a little bit, and it moves. We suspect that it moves a lot. There are some things that we're looking at coming into the future for repairing prop scars, because prop scars is one of the ways that seagrass gets harmed, and then it's very difficult for it to come back. And there's been some success with restoring that, and we're looking at a program to do that.
Where would someone find that documentation?
The documentation of the successful program,
Yes, ma'am.
I can, I'm trying to think of the name. The gentleman's name is Bo Williams, who's had some successful programs, but you can get in touch with me and I can give you what I have.
Okay, thank you so much. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Chatham.
How would you describe the health of the bay?
The health of the bay is precarious. We're lucky in that we don't have any, we've never had large point source pollutant. We haven't had big factories pumping, lead and factory waste or anything into the bay that we have to recover from. But we do have, and we also have, on the good side, 2/3 of the shoreline on the north side is owned by Eglin Air Force Base and is not being developed. But this is such a great place to live. More people will want to live here, and we have to, the more people you get on the water, the more stress you're going to have on the waterways. So those are things that we have to be constantly vigilant about. We have the opportunity to not have to spend 30 years repairing our bay. We have the opportunity to do a few things to get it back up to
Would you say that the health of the bay is improving, declining, stagnant?
So over time, there has been some nutrient enrichment in some spots, and so that can lead to a decline, for sure.
How big of an issue is the septic tanks with Okaloosa County? I noticed they have a good bit of sewage spills. Are y'all addressing that with the county, or is...
The sewage, I'm not as familiar with Okaloosa County's issues with septic tanks as I am with Walton County's, and I know that Walton County has identified all of theirs and is trying to identify some of the 319 grants and things that will allow the septic to sewer connections to make improvements. Okaloosa may be doing that as well, but I'm not as familiar.
Thanks for all you do.
Thank you. Anything else?
Thanks, Allison. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for the presentation. All right. At this point, we'll enter into our public comments on agenda items that are not public hearings or any other matter that's not on the agenda. You can speak on any matter that you would like. Do you have any cards, Ray? But normally you can fill out a card to speak. I will look out in the audience if anybody would like to raise their hand. I'll take you one at a time. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. And if it's on if somebody ahead of you has already spoken on that issue and touched on most of the points that you wanted to say, it's A-OK to say, I support everything that Mr. So-and-so said. Thank you very much, in the interest of time. So at this point, I don't have any cards, so I'll look out in the audience. If anybody would like to come up to the podium, this is your opportunity to do so. All right. Seeing no one wants to talk, we'll just close this portion. Oh, there you go. Come on up. When you come up, just the red light's already on, so you don't have to touch the button. Just give your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Kathy Poco. I live at 775 Gulf Shore Drive, number 2080, and I'm here representing the residents of Sandpiper Cove. Just to bring up the incident that happened 2 weeks ago. We're very concerned. This is a residential area. We have loud music going till 4 a.m. in the morning, and now we have gunfights. One of those bullets could have come through one of our condos, and we just want to make sure that the city and the sheriff's department are going to be doing something to settle this. We called the sheriff, many of us, at all hours of the morning, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and tell them that there's a disturbance, that there's too much noise, and then we go out on our balconies, and they don't show up. So we're very concerned, and we just hope that you take in consideration the problem that there is there, residential area, gunfights, and loud noise. I don't know if we have a noise ordinance. If we do, it's not working. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to have anything to say? Come on, step on up. Again, just give your name and your address.
My name is Ron Boverhouse. I live at 775 Gulf Shore Drive, Unit 1057, and I agree with what Kathy had just said. Thank you.
Thank you. Sergeant, would you like to address the sheriff's response to issues such as this? I know Cap Nix gave you the blessed opportunity to come and be at our meeting. Go ahead.
Sergeant Jason Fulgen with the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office. I would like to see anyone that's got a time that they've called that you feel like we haven't responded, if you will get with me after the meeting, I'd like to know what that date and time is, because I would like to research it to make sure that we are. We respond to all calls for service. The noise complaint situation, there is a City of Destin ordinance about noise, and the Sheriff's Office and the city works in conjunction to try to address those issues. A lot of times it's something that the city can't handle or can't address, and a lot of times it's something the Sheriff's Office can't address. Either way, we turn it back over to the other party. So again, like I said, if there's anything that you, any calls that you have that you feel like we haven't responded to, please get with me, because I would like to research it and get back in touch with you and let you know what our response was and what we did, because I'm certain that we responded to them.
Thank you, Sergeant. And he's sincere, folks. This would be a good opportunity to talk to one of the supervisors responsible for the Destin community. Joey, would you like to weigh in on this, because some of this does fall under our compliance department?
Yes, sir. We haven't had any calls for service as far as, noise ordinance violations since I've been back. I don't recall of any. And he is right. We do work in conjunction. What we request from the public is just go to our website. It'll tell you how our policies and procedures will just, if it's after hours, you can contact us. It will be answered, within a timely manner. But after hours, we do, on a noise violation, contact the Sheriff's Office. They will respond. If they see that code needs to respond, if we're not available, if I'm available, then I will go ahead and dispatch an officer, or I'll come out personally and take care of it.
Thank you, Joey. Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we've all received quite a few emails about this. I don't know if there's anything the city can do about an establishment that's, I know Fish Heads got shut down years ago.
Lance and I have talked about this. Lance, would you like to share with us some of the things that we can and cannot do?
The best thing we can do is support the Sheriff's Office, and we continue to do that. And they're working all avenues. Some of them I'm sure that I'm not aware of, but they're working all avenues. They have assured me of that. Secondly, we can look at our own internal processes and rules, and I can tell you that I don't believe that we have good tools in our toolbox at this point in time, and we are trying to correct that so that we do have the ability to at least temporarily sustain operations of an establishment like this.
Do we still have the program where you go online on the city's website and file a complaint with code enforcement and follow that through the system of what's being done or has not been done, so there is a paper trail?
There is still through our website a means where citizens can voice their concerns about any issues, including a code enforcement issue that is logged through the city manager's office and then followed up through the city manager's office to make sure that the loop is closed. Does that answer that question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Ms. Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to bring this up under comments, but since we're talking about it now, I know I read in the article that one of the concerns mentioned was that there were folks that were trying to gain admittance to the club, but were not allowed for whatever reason, so then they would all go sit in their cars and hang out outside. And that to me sounds ripe for, well, number one, why were you not admitted? But then now you're allowed to sit outside. So I'd love to have the sheriff's office look into that. I don't know if that's loitering or what that, but that shouldn't be happening in my opinion. The other issue is I had seen a report that said that at some point the club had hired off-duty security and that had lapsed and they no longer had it. Is there any way to force somebody to have security on site? Can we do that as a city?
I don't know of any way that we can force that, but I can assure you that Joey and I intend to have a frank discussion with them, expressing some of the same concerns that we've heard from the audience tonight. I mean, I have grandchildren and children, and I fully feel that they need to take every measure possible to prevent this from happening in the future.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Ramswell, the sheriff called me after this incident, and he assured me that they're using not only their own police powers, but they're actually looking into the state statutes and of course, the Department of Business Relationships can dictate, especially one where you have a liquor license involved. With those licenses require a certain amount of performances, and one of them is providing a safe environment for the facility, and so that's being looked in now. So for our folks out there, no one's sitting on their hands. We're exploring every avenue that we can to try to rectify the situation. I'm hoping that the owners of the business want to do the same thing. It's not good for their businesses as well. So hopefully they'll want to play by the rules, and we can have a safe environment and a good business environment. And if not, well then I believe there's other avenues, and our sheriff is looking at those at this time. Mr. Mitchell, you probably have something to weigh in here, seeing this is right up your alley.
No, I'm going to hold off on that for right now. But I didn't realize residents were going to be here tonight, and prior to the meeting I spoke with the sergeant and the Joey about this. And the sergeant already told you, if you would, to get with him after that to do that. But I would also suggest moving forward, anytime you call for service, just write it down and document it, and that way you'll have it, and that way if in fact they don't come, you'll have something to go back to the sheriff's office and give them a specific date and time. So please keep a log on that moving forward. Like the mayor said, there's a lot of things that are moving. It's not going to happen overnight, but it is a work in progress. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Anyone else have anything they'd like to talk about on the agenda or not on the agenda? Come on up. Just state your name, your address, and you got 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Fernando Petit.
Fernando, hit that button.
Hi, my name is Fernando Petit. I am at 824 Gold Shore Drive. That is actually the location you guys are talking about, Break-a-Brack. As a business owner, I'm as concerned about this as all of you guys, especially the people that is near me. We are making some changes to make this better for the community. The biggest thing is my hip hop event. My hip hop event is the one that has brought me a lot of issues during the time that I've been there. I've been there now for 5 years, and that's the only event that's giving us that type of trouble. We do a lot of parties, from snowboard parties to my Latinos, my European community, my locals. And this is the only event that gives us that type of trouble. With that being said, my brother and I, we have decided not to continue with these events. It brings a clientele from outside of our cities that neither you guys want, neither my brother and I want it. We got very successful with that event, but we're gonna give that up completely for our sake of our business and for the well-being of Destin. To my neighbors, I wanna 100% apologize for the, the nights of dilemmas that we have had through the past. I am your neighbor. I am right next door. If you guys want to communicate with me at any time, I'm always open. You guys got me on my website. You can pull up my number. A lot of the people, especially the sheriff's department, they're going to be very happy to hear that, yeah, that event is not happening at my location anymore. And I think that alone is going to change a great deal. So once again, I just want to apologize to everyone and to let you guys know that we are here to help you in every step in the way. Because yes, my business is very important to me, and I mean to be here for many years to come. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. And that's the way we like it. Thank you, Fernando. Any further comments from anyone? I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing or public comment portion of the meeting, and we'll press on. We have quite a list of things to accomplish tonight. First up, take it away, Lance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First item tonight is an update on the Public Beach Initiative that we've been working on since the early December timeframe, and we have Mr. Webb Warren to give us that update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As requested last meeting, staff is excited to bring before you a status report of our Public Beach Initiative. The need for Public Beach. As you are all well aware, Council and staff receive a lot of feedback from residents and visitors concerning the public's ability to visit and enjoy Destin's beaches. Some comments include, the tourists have no idea where to set up. We could barely find a place. One even said the beach is blocked for us second-class visitors. Additional comments in our local newspapers are shown here. A sliver of beach access, very small beach accesses and parks. We love Destin, but we won't be coming back if there's a fight for the beach. The graphic you see here is the total linear beach footage of our Gulf front parks in Destin. Now, Henderson Beach is not included as it requires a fee to enter the park. Our beach trails and beach access points are also not included as that they are narrow paths and do not have facilities such as restrooms, shade, or parking. So, where do we start the process? The process started back in November when staff was asked to look at 3 properties. The first 3 properties, Capri, Tarpon Beach, and the Henderson Beach Villas, are our largest properties available in our overall list. The beach property list grew to include 8 potential opportunities over the following 2 meetings in December. At our first meeting in January, staff received the go-ahead to move forward with these appraisals for 8 properties. These appraisals will be completed in the March-April timeframe, which is where we stand today. Here's the full list of the 8 properties. All properties are in the Crystal Beach area and are listed with the owner's initial asking price. Here we have a map of all 8 properties. Starting on the west side of the map, we have the 69-foot West James Lee Park parcel immediately adjacent to Okaloosa County's 1,500-foot James Lee Park. Then we have the Sunfish Street parcel, which is about 60 feet wide. Next is the Tarpon Beach property, which boasts 336 feet of beach immediately adjacent to our existing Tarpon Beach Trail. Moving again west, we have the Capri property, a multifamily unit that has 300 feet of beach. We also have 3 potential expansion properties adjacent to our shore of Crystal Beach Park. Our park is 67 foot wide currently, and the adjacent opportunities range from 50 to 67 feet in width. And last of all, certainly not least, we have the Henderson Beach Villas, which is a 205 foot parcel that has an existing townhome development order on it. And for council, for your reference, this is the same map, just a little more information on each parcel. So, moving forward, the biggest question for staff is how to approach this project from a budgetary perspective. The identified parcels have a wide range of asking prices and appraisal amounts. As you can tell, we have many potential pieces of the puzzle to figure out, such as the TDC, Triumph, and various grant opportunities. So, where do we stand and how do we move forward? We have our list of 8 properties. We have all but one of our appraisals in. Tonight, we will review a broad formula to help prioritize the property list in staff's efforts. Tonight, we will ask that council consider a dollar amount for the city is willing to commit to our public beach initiative. This financial commitment helps the city to pursue good faith commitments from other funding opportunities such as the TDC, Triumph, and other grants. The city can also pursue an external acquisitions manager to assist the city in grants and negotiations. Moving forward, as we have more pieces of the budget puzzle, as we have more pieces of the budget puzzle come together, we can begin securing a contract or contracts for beach parcels. Once a contract is in hand, we can continue to pursue additional grant opportunities for construction and possible reimbursements. So just a quick note, appraisals are protected from public record during this process. So what you see before you is a formula that is intended to be a general and broad guide to help prioritize efforts moving forward. In this formula, there are 5 criteria with a range of 1 to 8 points per criteria, 8 points being the highest scoring value for each criteria. I would like to remind everyone, ultimately, negotiations with the property owners will provide the most meaningful results to come back to council for approval. Criteria 1 is scored by the total amount of linear beach footage a parcel has. Criteria 2 is the asking price per linear foot. I look at this like the grocery store formula of price per pound. It allows us to best compare pricing for the different sized and priced properties. The lowest price per linear foot gets the highest points. Criteria 3 is the asking price to appraisal ratio. These are ranked in the order of their ratio, with the most favorable ratios receiving the most points. Criteria 4 is proximity to city parks and trails. If a parcel is close to existing city facilities or would allow us to expand an existing footprint, it was ranked accordingly. Number 5 is location criteria. As you can see on the map, we have the Henderson Beach State Park on the west side of Crystal Beach and James Lee Park on the east. James Lee Park boasts about a quarter mile of beach with full facilities. Henderson Beach is a popular drive-to destination, but it requires a fee and it does not have a gate or restrooms on its eastern border to Crystal Beach. In between James Lee Park and Henderson is about a 1.25 mile gap with our 67-foot short Crystal Beach Park as a parcel that has full public facilities as well as any substantial linear beach footage. Staff believes from an analysis of our most frequent complaint locations and the locations of existing park facilities, the need increases for additional linear beach footage in public beach parks the further west you go from James Lee Park. Here is a quick sample of the scoring results. As you can see, many of the properties scored well with the criteria provided. A summarized version of this show that the properties surrounding the shore of Crystal Beach Park, as well as Capri and Tarpon Beach, all scored well in this formula. Again, ultimately, negotiations will present a more refined list of properties for the city. At this time, I'd like to introduce Bragg Farmer, our finance director, to discuss some potential budgetary opportunities for the city and this initiative.
As you can see, we do have impact fees that potentially could be used for some of this process, except there's not a lot of impact fees available when you look at the cost of the property that we're looking at acquiring. So ultimately, funding sources that the city could provide would come from the unassigned fund balance. And in just general discussions with Webb and our city manager, we kind of came to a number of about $2 million would be the top level that the city would put into any property that we acquired. And hopefully, we would do it through a formula situation where a majority of the funding would come from a grant, the TDC, a third-party source of some sort, and we could potentially use our funding to do any demolition and reconstruction on that site, because you've got to remember, all of these properties have got buildings and structures on them that would have to be demoed, cleaned up, and ultimately, in some cases, maybe bathrooms might have to be provided, so we would have to put that in. And that will be a significant amount of money. In fact, it will probably surprise you when we actually go out and start demoing a home or townhouses or whatever are on that property and getting it refurbished for what we identify as a park situation. So I think we just need to keep in mind that the city would like to put, I think we could put forward approximately $2 million toward this initiative, but I think we want to be on the back end, not the front end. We don't want to put the first $2 million in. We want to put the last X dollars in, and then hopefully use our funding to do the demo and then the reconstruction.
Bragg, especially during the grant writing process, the city putting $2 million of its skin in the game, that's real important when you're filing for these grants, isn't it?
Yes, some of them, most of these state grants require the city to have a certain percentage of the funding provided for us to be even allowed to apply for the grant. And so there may be 3, 4, 5 different grant sources out there that we could use this $2 million as our matching portion of the grant. And in a lot of cases, it's not as significant as the total cost of the grant. A lot of times it's in the 10 to 20% range that we would have to provide funding for. So, like I said, that would allow our funding to be on the back end, and then we could use that for the reconstruction and deconstruction of the property.
Do you have anything you'd like to add to that? Okay.
Actually, we have a slide here that actually, thank you, Bragg. We actually have some additional grant opportunities that we kind of included here. This is certainly not an exhaustive or complete list, but it is a good starting point, showing that some grants that could be pursued as we move through this process. Like everybody, note that many of these grants have short windows to apply for, and some occur later in the year. These grant applications likely require the city to have contracts, or the city demonstrates a financial commitment to the process in order to move forward with them. If I may, moving forward, this is what we're looking for tonight. We're looking for a general consensus that staff can prioritize efforts moving forward with the property list as described. The formula is not designed to exclude any of the properties available, but simply help identify properties that are most compatible with our beach initiative and prioritize our efforts. Staff recommends we budget to not exceed $2 million to be used from the unassigned fund balance. This can be used toward a match of funds preferred by external funding sources, such as those grants, as well as an identifying dollar amount the city can commit to this project. We're also looking for council's guidance for project management in this process. This project is extremely important for the city, and we really want to ensure that we put our very best foot forward during this process. We believe that external experts in parks acquisition and grants will save the city time and money as we work through this process. Finally, we do want to remind that for all Destin residents, the city does offer a $30, we call it an all-you-can-beach state park pass for the Henderson Beach State Park. Each year, the city invests money to be paid to the state of Florida for our full-time residents to enjoy this tremendous park in the heart of our city. There is a large amount of parking, however, it usually does fill during peak summer months. We advise for an early arrival if you plan on taking advantage of this opportunity during the summer. Staff wants to thank everyone for this opportunity to present this information. Your city staff believes that this is a tremendous opportunity for the city of Destin to ensure beach parks are preserved and secured for our future generations to come. Thank you again, and we're happy to turn the floor over.
Thank you, Webb. I appreciate that presentation. Just inform the council, I'm going to give an abbreviated portion of this briefing to the TDC tomorrow morning, to not specifically ask for any money at this time, because as we saw in the thing to-do list, we have a couple things as a council that we need to do first. But I just want to put a bug in the air and a shot across their bow that I'm going to be coming asking for money at some point. So I'll be, Webb and I produced a shorter version of this for tomorrow. So I want to go right back to the moving forward list, and we took care of 1 and 2 with identifying available properties and obtaining appraisals. We do have one appraisal that we're waiting on, but it's one of those I'll get it to you tomorrow things. Hopefully we'll have it by the end of the week, or the end of next week, or the end of the week after that. But so next is coming up with the prioritizing the property list. And Webb was very humble in his presentation to you about his matrix. I thought it was extremely well done. It was easy for me to understand, and that's saying a lot, you know, being a fisherman. And I think the great thing about using a matrix like this, we did this when I sat on the Restore panel, is it's a real transparent way for everyone to see the evaluation. It kind of cuts out any misunderstanding, and it pretty much lays it out nuts and bolts wise. And so I'd like to enter into that discussion part of this. I have no problem with the matrix and or the results at this time, but I'd like to hear from each one of you on if you're satisfied with this matrix, the way it's going, we'll use it, and that's how we'll prioritize our project. Ms. Ramswell?
Thank you, Mayor. I really like the 2 shore at Crystal Beach options, East 1 and East 2, especially because they adjoin our existing public park. So with that said, the one on the other side, the west side, which is the Crystal Port one, you know, looking at the 3 of those combined with our existing park, and that would give us a tremendous amount of beachfront there for public use. So I really like those. And then out of the others, you know, kind of going back and forth between the larger ones, if we were able to, you know, get a grant of a significant amount or the TDC on board for a significant amount, I think I would have to go with the Capri as well. And I would have to imagine that some of these owners might be willing to negotiate a little bit from their asking price as well. So that would be my preferences, would be East 1, East 2, and Crystal Port, and then Capri. Just my thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. Very impressive, Webb. Great job. So, like the mayor was saying, it was easy to understand. And I really nothing I would change personally. I agree with the top, really the top 4 options of what you have presented tonight. But really great job. Thank you, Mayor.
And I want to add something that Webb pointed out to me, and you touched on it, Ms. Ramswell. Now that people see the list, people might be a little more willing to negotiate to change how the lineup looks. And that changes the appraisal versus asking price ratio, which could change their positioning through the matrix. And I think that the staff and especially if we can get a project manager approved, which is one of the things on the very end, I think that this will put us in a better position than when we first started out. And having that matrix will make that real easy. And not only for us to understand, but also the people that are offering their properties up for sale, because now they know where they stand and they can utilize that. Skip?
Well, Webb, first of all, I want to thank you for this is a wonderful presentation. And so really that just reiterates the faith that we had in you when we made you the assistant city manager. So I think you're doing a great job. And the matrix I think is great. We can use that matrix, and a lot of it's going to depend on, you know, like the mayor was saying, on what the final asking price or the final price that some of these people come up with. But I think in the interim, I think Mr. Mayor and the rest of the council, we need to have some direction to the city staff of what we're going to allow them to do from this point on, and I think they need some direction. I've got a motion I would like to make now, if I can. I'd move that we authorize the staff to allocate the $2 million from the unassigned fund balance, and then for us to, we talked about this in the presentation, to find an acquisition manager at a cost not to exceed $15,000, because that's their limit on what they can actually spend without coming back to us and asking us for approval. So let me just restate it so it's real simple. I move that we authorize staff to allocate $2 million from the unassigned fund balance and find an acquisition manager at a cost not to exceed $15,000.
Second. I've got a motion, I got a second. Anyone else want to weigh in on that? Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and take this to a vote.
Mayor, I'm going to have to abstain. I've got a family member with owns one of the properties in question.
That still leaves us enough to vote, right? 5? Okay. Let's go. Ayes have it, 1 abstain. So moved. And basically, Webb, Lance, that's really what we wanted out of this presentation today. We don't have to go any further, do we?
I don't believe so. This gives us good, solid direction to start moving forward and start herding these cats and get this process moving forward as quickly as possible, because this is really an important initiative for the city.
And you know, when we started this initiative with y'all's blessing, council support, I foolishly thought that it's something we could do real easy, and it is really difficult. And again, hats off to the staff. And I'm looking forward to who we get as an acquisition manager, and where we really get into the actual process of acquiring some of these properties. And the good news is that the council is going to stay involved in every aspect of it, and will have final approval on these acquisitions. So we just want to make that clear, that you haven't usurped any of your responsibility of seeing this through. I do think this will be one of the greatest things that the city's done, and this council could do probably in the last 20 years if we can make this happen. You know, it's going to be the funding. The money's always the hard part, but I think we're going to knock on every door. In fact, we might even hammer on every door to try to make this happen. I want to thank you, everyone, again tonight. Let's move on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of council, for your confidence in that. Of course, my former position makes me very happy to hear about this. I've been wanting these additions for years, and hopefully this is only the first go-around, and we'll secure some property, then we'll come back. Hopefully after Mr. Lewis up here has made some changes to our impact fees, where we will be able to bring some additional funds to the table to acquire even some additional property in round 2 and 3. So we're behind, and we're attempting to catch up, and appreciate Webb's efforts on this whole project. So
I assure you, it's my pleasure. This is going to be a great project.
Moving on to the next item, we have the Crab Island Committee. The county board requested the formation of a committee to review the regulations that they created to see if they could be enhanced. And as a part of that, the City Council of Destin was given one representative that they need to appoint. At the last meeting, council instructed staff on how they wanted us to proceed with getting the candidates for this position, and we have since, we originally had 4 applications, but we have 1 withdrawal, and so we have 3 applications to be considered. In alphabetical order, we have Mr. Braden, Mr. Buckingham, and Ms. Abear as our 3 applicants for this committee. So those 3 names are before you for consideration. Once you make a determination, we will forward that to the county commissioners for inclusion in the committee.
All right, thank you, Lance. I was the one that withdrew my name after speaking with a couple people that do want to be on there. They were like-minded, and I've got enough to do. So, Mr. Braden, we'll let you see now your name's on the volunteer list. Step right up to the microphone.
Thanks, Mayor. It was told to me that the county would like a member of the council, Destin City Council, to be appointed to this board? Is that just rumor, or was?
When I spoke with Greg Stewart and Greg Casella, they said they would prefer an elected city council member, but the city could nominate anyone they choose. I don't know, Lance, I don't know if you have spoken with Greg Casella.
I did not speak to Mr. Casella, but I also had the same understanding. It would be preferred perhaps to have a council member, but it's not required.
With that said, I'll make the motion then to appoint Rodney Braden to the Crab Island Committee.
I got a motion,
Second.
and I got a second. I got a couple people that would like to chat. Mr. Oberdeer.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't heard this part that the county wanted somebody from the council on there, and I don't know if that's, I don't know what the reasoning is behind that. So I guess it would have been good, I guess, if I could have heard that from them and understood their reasoning why that's true.
I don't know the reason why. Greg Stewart and Greg Casella simply told me that the idea was to get the elected council members from the municipality most closely affected. But as they told me, it's not a requirement. If the city council would prefer to nominate somebody else, the city council is welcome to do that as well. So it's not a strong feeling by the county by any means, I don't think.
Mr. Oberdeer, is that all you have? Okay, Mr. Morgan.
Rodney, you're going to make every meeting. You're confident that you can be in attendance at all of them? I just say that because it's the way the composition of the board is not in favor to the city of Destin's view that we sent to the county originally. From the cake is vague.
Yeah. I guess the reason I would like to be on this committee is because I'm the one I think that got this ball rolling.
Yeah, no,
back in the day.
I don't question that. I want to make
Yes,
sure
sir,
you're attending.
I definitely will make.
Got it. Thank you.
Every meeting. Thank you. But yes, sir, I will. And I will give everybody a report back on every meeting.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Marler.
Well, no disrespect to Mr. Braden or Mr. Buckingham. Teresa Hayberry is our chairman of our Recreation Committee, and I think that falls into recreation. So Rodney, I wouldn't be able to support this because I think we should have somebody from the Recreation Committee, and we have enough on our plate, I believe, also. Nothing, that's just the way I feel.
Any further discussion on this? We have a motion, we have a second. Seeing none? Ayes carry, so moved. Congratulations, Mr. Braden. Plus, I didn't want to go give my fingerprints. You do know you have to do that yet, right? Or have you
My
done it?
fingerprints are already in Tallahassee. So.
Yeah, so are mine. I have a CC permit, but you still got to, because it's a county commission, you still got to go to the sheriff's department. That's an FYI.
I'm there. Thank you.
All righty then, back to our city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 4C is an item wanting direction from council concerning the evaluation of professional services. In particular, this is related to the project on Airport Road, the curve, the engineering. Council instructed staff to go back out for a new RFQ, and in preparation for that, staff spoke to the state and federal representatives of the grant programs to get clarification as to what we need to do to make this process better. So I'm asking for guidance tonight for this one item, which is specifically about Airport Road, but we'll be coming back in the very near future because we need to have established a permanent policies so that we don't ever have to run into these situations, and it's very clear how we proceed in the future. So tonight I'm looking for council's preference, and I will tell you that the state agencies that we talked to indicated to us that they prefer when looking at an RFQ like this, that when the responses come back in, that a group consisting of staff members review the replies that are received, rank them and determine who their top pick is, and then recommend only that top pick to the council for a thumbs up or thumbs down vote. That is the preferred method by the federal government and by the state government. They insist that that is the most transparent and way to proceed and keeps as much politics out of the process as possible. So that is option number one. Option number two is similar to the process that we used a few weeks ago, whereas the council would receive the same packets that the committee received. After the committee reviews, the only ones that would be tossed out would be if they were determined to be incomplete. So the committee would toss those out before presenting the remainder to council, and then council would rank each individual submission based on the criteria in the RFQ, and then determine a top ranking firm in that manner. Those are the two options. We can only put one in the RFQ, and that's why I'm coming to you tonight, because I have to, before we send this back out, eliminate one of the versions that is in the current RFQ.
Could I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Tonight, for simplicity, we'll decide between one of the two, but as in what Webb did with the matrix, establishing criteria to rank with, provide us a tool, a similar device when it comes to those RFPs.
Absolutely. If council chooses to rank these firms themselves instead of having the staff committee do it, then the specific criteria will be outlined in the RFQ, and that will be transferred to your scoring sheets.
Mr. Overdeer.
Okay, because I think one of the things that we've done is we've got some really great people in the staff now. We got people in key positions that are really doing a great job, and we got really good members on the staff. And I think that's their job, is to do this like what the government actually is asking us to have them do, which is have them rank order whoever responds to the RFQ and let them make the decision. That's their job. I don't think it's our job as council members to do that. I think that's us trying to do their job, and I don't think that's a good idea. I think what we need to do is we need to let them rank order them and then tell us which one they think is the best and bring it to us for final consideration. So with that, I would make the motion. I would move that the bid committee review the RFQ submissions received from prospective firms, choosing their top firm based on criteria listed in the RFQ and recommending their top choice to the council for approval.
Second.
I got a motion, I have a second. Any further comment? Good job, Skip. Let's vote. Ayes have it, so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 4D is a discussion item for the potential livery vessel moratorium that was discussed at the last council meeting. Last week, the Harbor CRA Advisory Committee met and discussed this issue and had two recommendations, and Mr. Zanguzzi is here to present the recommendations of that committee. And we also have Joey available for other comments related to this activity.
Thank you. Members of the council, the CRA, the Harbor Board CRA made a couple of recommendations to you. The first one was that you consider instituting a moratorium based on the current number of vessels that are currently permitted in the city as of last year. And their concern was essentially predicated on safety concerns of both the boarders and also the folks that recreate in the harbor. And then the second recommendation they made was for a study to be undertaken, essentially a carrying capacity study, to be undertaken to determine the maximum defendable number of vessels that we can allow in the harbor. And they looked at that from a social component, which is the health and safety, and then they also wanted to be looked at from an economic component, which is to support the tourism industry and recreation, and then the last component is the environmental aspect to ensure water quality issues. And so those are the two motions that they forwarded to you for consideration. And I did ask them that if they are requiring a study, that they also indicate to you a funding source to support that study.
Well, I'll start with you, Mr. Overdeer.
I hate to hog this, but okay. I agree that we may be too crowded down there in the harbor. I don't know that for a fact, and I don't have anything to prove that to me, to substantiate that. In fact, from what I read in the two little reports that you put together, we actually had less livery vessels in 2018 than we did in 2017.
There's no way. I know there's companies that are.
And like I said, I don't know if that's even factual. All I'm saying is, I don't have any factual evidence because we haven't done this harbor capacity study. So rather than instituting a moratorium now before we have the harbor study, I think it'd be wiser to do the harbor study first. So I mean, I'd be willing to make a motion based on what the harbor CRA recommended. I would move that city staff engage an entity to commission a harbor capacity study to consider aesthetics, socioeconomic, quality of life, tourism, and community character issues, including population concentration, availability of open space, habitat diversity, and the diversity and health of existing species within the harbor CRA district and Calhoun area. And additionally, I'd recommend that the city staff designate a funding source for the study.
I got a motion.
I mean, I'll second it for discussion.
I got a second for discussion, and I've got a couple people up here. Skip, I'm gonna butt heads with you on this one. I think this is, what you brought up is the exact reason why we should do a moratorium. Everyone that has grown up here, everyone that's done business on the harbor has watched with their own eyes what's happened since 2012, 2013. It's not grown just a little bit. It's exponentially increased. A dock that I saw every single day went from 6 pontoon boats for over 10 years. They presently have 22 passenger pontoon boats in the same footprint that they used to have 8. So we've got an issue, not only in sheer numbers, but then when you try to go to work on that harbor or go to have fun on that harbor in a boat, you're taking your life in your own hands, especially on the weekends around the holidays. So this is the exact reason I think the Harbor CRA made this recommendation. It's the exact reason why I think we ought to have a moratorium. It doesn't harm any single business that was operating in 2018. They can maintain their level of business until we do have that study, and then we can make better decisions. But I'd be totally against. Of course, I don't get to vote unless it's a tie tonight. But I'd be totally against not doing the moratorium before the study.
Let me clarify Skip's motion real quick. Ray, correct me if I'm wrong, but Skip is not saying don't pass the moratorium in this motion. You're just saying commission the study. Is that your motion? Okay. It's only addressing the third number in here.
Yeah, that's semantics.
But you can still have another, well, we're going to need 2 motions. We're going to need another motion directed at the moratorium. So if you want the capacity study, then the vote is yes for this, is all I'm saying. And then we'll also need another motion one way or another on the moratorium.
Or we can kill this one and have 2 separate motions.
I think Skip's motion wasn't to kill the moratorium at all, was it? It was simply for the study,
that's
which
why
I would support.
that's why I took it directly from what the Harbor CRA recommended. And then the moratorium part is
The separate.
the separate motion.
Got it.
So-
So
my way
so
of
these
thinking, I
would
don't-
be the two motions.
I mean, I'm not in favor of the moratorium, but if you want to make a second motion to do the moratorium on top of this motion, that's fine.
We got a motion, we got a second, we're having discussion now, we'll let the vote go down, and like I said, I don't get to vote anyways. Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. I couldn't agree with you more with your comments. I think we're doing it backwards, in my opinion, on this motion. I think we need to do a moratorium and then do a study on it, because if we do a study and then do a moratorium later, we're just going to get applications and permits and all that for more pontoon boats. Just in case the study says, well, we're at capacity, that's just what I'm afraid of. You know, then they'll be grandfathered in and can put more in there. It is a problem. I have personally stood on the dock and listened to, and it was a family member that used to run this pontoon boat business, tell the individual, you know, when you get back within 20 feet of the dock, just shut it off and throw me a rope and I'll pull you in. Or get on the boat and show them around, and they have no idea what they're doing, and this is the key, this is the throttle. Well, how do you put it in reverse? Well, you got to do this, and you steer like this, and then untie the ropes and shove them off and wish them the best of luck. And it's just dangerous, and you hear it from a lot of the captains out there that are complaining about it, and it's just, they don't know what they're doing. But anyhow, I would support a motion that, you know, we put a moratorium on it for time being, so we have a chance to do a study and see what the impacts are on the harbor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Menchel.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I have a question for Mr. Forgione. Do you have any idea how many vessels are out there that are unregistered at this time?
Yes, sir. From my reports, we had 15 businesses that registered. What you see, these numbers are the ones that registered in 2017, the ones that registered in 2018. So what you have in front of you are the correct numbers that registered. That's all I can tell you there. So we have, my reports indicate there was 5 other businesses, 3 or 4 on the harbor, and 1 that was launching from Joe's Bayou area. I'm working on them. I've been doing a lot of homework. So your harbor, just so you guys know, your harbor compliance officer has been tasked. They are going to be your eyes and ears. The harbor compliance officer is going to make sure that you're conducting your water testing, controls your harbor pumps. I have tasked him to go ahead and conduct our internal audit and capacity survey after season, not in 1 year, after season, which would be brought to you by September. This way you can know the scope of the moratorium. That's what I was going to do, because if you wide range it, it could get really expensive. What I see is we got a lot of lack of enforcement, but that's about to change. So,
First of all, I have met with quite a few people on this subject and haven't verified all of this, but there's a possibility that there's some businesses that haven't registered, number one, and there's also a lot of vessels out there that don't have this, okay, don't have the permit. So that's, I agree with the mayor, and just to kind of clarify this, if we go with this motion, okay, all this motion is a capacity study. Okay, then we do a second motion on the moratorium. And I would submit to you, as far as moratorium, what I would suggest is, yes, we need a moratorium, but some type of language, I'm going to use the word grandfather. If we do a moratorium tonight and vote on that, any business that had an outstanding order for a boat today, that would be grandfathered in. We can't stop somebody from buying something. We can stop them tomorrow, but if somebody a legitimate business ordered something yesterday, we should allow them to continue that purchase.
I think that in my mind, Mr. Mitchell, is if you had a permit to run a pontoon boat and you sold it, but you still got that permit and you ordered a new boat, it's all about the permit. That's the way the fisheries work. and that's the way I think we ought to make this work.
Well,
It's
I'm just
not
saying-
about the vessel, it's about the permit for the vessel. That's what these little deals are.
Absolutely. Now, I'm
Okay, just to let you know, I know where you're coming from on that.
If we have a legitimate company, okay, that's permitted on everything, and for whatever reason, they have decided to increase their fleet,
That's what a moratorium's to prevent.
okay? Yeah, but my question is this. If a legitimate company, a registered company, ordered a boat yesterday before we had this discussion, and they actually have paperwork in for a sale prior to our moratorium, are we going to prevent that sale from going through?
In my mind, that's what a moratorium is about. I'm not going to make any friends making that statement, but what if that legitimate business just ordered 15 more?
I understand.
That's the whole purpose of this. That's the whole purpose of the moratorium discussion until we have the capacity stuff.
I get it, and I understand it. I'm in favor of moratorium. I just wanted to throw that question out there. Okay.
That's my personal opinion, but I don't get the vote on this. So,
Right.
so you know, as a lifelong waterman on the harbor, so
From a protocol standpoint, we vote on this, and then we move with the moratorium.
yeah, we have a motion and a second, so we're going to have to vote on this
Good.
particular motion. Mr. Morgan?
Thank you, Mayor. Steve, one of the reasons you don't see these on a lot of boats and a lot of businesses that are unlicensed or not registered is because we've had zero enforcement since we passed this 2 or 3 years ago when we were dealing with it. And I have a lot of confidence in our code enforcement now to enforce all these regulations that we worked really hard to put on the books, because 3 years ago it was a problem. And I don't need a study to tell, I need a study to make informed policy decisions, but I don't need a study to tell me that our harbor's, it's beyond capacity with livery vessels at the moment. I'm on the water a lot in the harbor, and it's dangerous. Constantly, and you talk to charter boat fishermen, it's, you know, if we don't take action and do something about this, and I don't want to be the town crier, but there will be a tragedy at some point. It is a tragedy waiting to happen. You have one of the most dangerous passes in the state of Florida, a bunch of novice boaters that have, many of whom have never driven a boat in salt water, and a good percentage of them are unquestionably drunk, because I've seen it. They don't obey no-wake signs, and that's through no fault of their own. They don't know what a no-wake sign is. The concept doesn't register with them because they're absolute novices. So it is a tragedy waiting to happen, and I don't want to see the city of Destin become reactive, and many times we have been, where a problem develops, and then we try to stamp it out, and actually that's what we're doing now. But I would hate to see us sitting up here talking about a tragic accident that happened this summer, next summer, and a couple summers. It's going to. It's just a matter of when, and when it does, then we'll have a real sense of urgency to make meaningful regulations and changes. But, you know, I support the study so we can make an informed policy decision, I guess, but something needs to happen, and I think a moratorium will give us time to catch our breath and make a decision from there, but something needs to be done. And you know, from 2018 to 2017, I had a member of the Harbor CRA committee earlier today, and of course I left the numbers in my office. But the numbers are have you seen the individuals report from the Harbor CRA committee? Their kind of independent audit of how many livery vessels are actually out there. It's staggeringly different than the numbers that we've been provided that are registered. And I know one large company, one of the bigger companies that's not on these reports that we got, because they simply thumbed their nose at the city and haven't registered because they know we've had a lack of code enforcement. And also, you see from 2017, you see a couple businesses operating on Calhoun. Well, they're still operating on Calhoun in 2018. They just didn't even try to register. So there definitely wasn't a decrease in livery vessels. We are beyond capacity. We're not at capacity, and something needs to be done. This is a good first step.
Thank you, sir. Lance?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make sure that Joey had the opportunity to truly weigh in as our staff professional on this. We are absolutely aware that that number is inaccurate, and that is because of what Joey stressed earlier, that people, whether intentional or unintentionally, did not register their vessels, and that's why that number is falsely low. That may not be the right term, but it is not an accurate number, and we as staff are aware of that. Secondly, I want to make sure that Joey really expresses his true feelings as far as having this new full-time position on the harbor and what he thinks that person can do for the city. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form ruling out a moratorium. It may be the right answer, but I just wanted Joey to give us his gut feel on how much this 40-hour-a-week position is going to help us curb these problems.
I just wanted you to make sure you know what scope you want your survey at, because you just know we'll have him at our disposal, and he'll do a complete report for you. So that's why I wanted to let you guys know that I had plans. I'm ahead of you. It's just I wish I had a season before you.
Don't we all? Thank you, Joey. I know, I think the entire council has a lot of confidence, not only in what you've already done, but what you tell us you're going to do. I don't doubt you one bit. We'll go with Kyron right here, and then I'd like to go ahead and take this one to a vote, and then we can move on to our next motion. Kyron?
All right, I'm not going to be in favor of a moratorium unless we have a time certain and not just till the end of a study. But the other problem that I see is that we're not just talking about the ones that are registered in the city of Destin. We have a lot of rogues out there. Registered in Okaloosa Island, registered anywhere else, because we had this situation the last couple of years out here where they rent a boat from somebody on Okaloosa Island or even in Fort Walton, and they bring it to somebody's dock over here in Destin, and that's where they pick it up, because we've had a lot of problems at Harbor Walk with illegal pontoon rentals docking at our docks out there. So the problem that I see exists not just we need to be able to address the non-Destin registered ones also, and I'd hope that study will have that in the scope, because I believe that's another one of our congestion problems, because everybody wants to come to the harbor, everybody wants to go to Crab Island, but they're not all located in the harbor or on Calhoun. They're located on Okaloosa Island, Fort Walton, Niceville, and various other places. So I would like to see that incorporated into the study, but we'll get to the moratorium part in a minute.
All right, so we got a motion, we got a second. Let's go ahead and decide on your motion. Would you restate it, seeing how I didn't get the clarity in it, Skip, the first time?
Oh, I'm sorry. I make a motion that the city staff engage an entity to commission a harbor capacity study to consider aesthetics, socioeconomic, quality of life tourism, and community character issues, including population concentration, availability of open space, habitat diversity, and the diversity and health of existing species within the Harbor CRA district and Calhoun area. Additionally, I recommend that the city staff designate a funding source for the study.
Okay, that was our motion, and we had a second. We've had some discussion that put the cart before the horse, and I apologize.
Mr. Mayor, can I request that be designated out of the fund balance? Unassigned fund balance? That's really our only option for this right now, since it's not budgeted.
Yeah, well, I mean, the motion says city staff designate a funding source, so if that's what you decide to designate, then that's what you can do.
That way we don't have to change the motion or anything like that. So we have a motion, we've had discussion. Let's go ahead and vote, folks. The vote is unanimous, so moved. And we talked about a moratorium. I want to remind everyone that we're not voting to put a moratorium on livery vessels tonight. We can vote to instruct our city attorneys to create an ordinance and go through the regular process of that. So just an FYI for everyone that tonight's not the defining moment. So if anyone would like to make a motion along those lines.
I'll do it.
Mr. Mitchell.
I'll make a motion that city council staff draw up the
ordinance for moratorium.
The city attorneys and land use
Right.
attorney?
Yes.
So the motion is that the city staff, land use attorney, and our city attorney draft a Liberty Vessel moratorium.
Correct.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And I got a second. Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to touch on a little bit what Mr. Steve was talking about earlier. I agree if an individual has a company and they have already submitted their application and provided with their extra parking, their bathroom facility, and everything they're supposed to provide, and that we have 10 additional vessels coming that we've already bought and paid for, and they've already went through the whole process, then I feel like they should continue with that, or should be allowed to, continue if they've already went through the whole process, not just because they got a ticket for a boat we've bought, and then they still have to go through the city to provide parking for those vessels and all that. Is that something that we can put in this moratorium, and how long is this moratorium, how long is this ordinance going to take to draw up?
Well, go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I think that is language we can work into the moratorium ordinance. I think we can do so effectively. Of course, it will, and Lewis, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're going to take it to the Harbor CRA board first, and then we're going to bring it back to City Council. So it will be well vetted, so there'll be lots of opportunities to change the language as you guys see fit. As far as the length of time for the moratorium, you guys probably, I believe that you have to have your permits in by March, your permit requests. Is that accurate, Joey?
If I'm not mistaken, yeah, end of March.
Okay.
April 1.
So we might want to go to next March, perhaps?
I'd recommend a 2-year moratorium because we're not sure how long the study is going to take, and then give us ample opportunity to evaluate it.
Really, my question was, how long will it take to get this moratorium going? We talking, because it's got to go back to the Harbor CRA, so we're talking another, at least a month?
Yes. I'm not sure how the days fall. So it would be either the second meeting in April would be second reading, or it'd be the first meeting in May would be the next reading.
So how do we prevent staff from being flooded with applications between now and that point with pontoon boats?
I believe that the application period has it already passed for this year?
I'm not for sure the actual date, but we have been receiving a couple. We have been receiving.
There's really no way to effectively quicken the pace unless we went through some sort of emergency ordinance process, which I would not recommend.
So we just put the cart in front of the horse is what we just did.
You could say that.
Unless they don't pay attention to city council meetings. But there's no way around that. I don't see. I mean,
I'd have been worked on the moratorium first and then pass this study.
Well, but I think the issue is, though, to do a moratorium, we just can't make a moratorium without an ordinance process. Am I correct?
Yeah, it has to go through the usual process for an ordinance. So in this case, it's going to the Harbor CRA and then back to you twice.
But just to clarify, it's not, because the capacity study is going to take place, that's not going to prevent the moratorium at all. They can occur simultaneously, so.
So we just don't have the legislative power to say tonight, moratorium. We have the rules and regulations to go through, but I agree that is a catch-22 from a perspective of trying to tamp that down. If nothing else, maybe it'll motivate the people that have been running illegally and under the cover of darkness. They'll decide to get their permits, because what's happened in fisheries when we went to moratorium permits is then it becomes a self-policing issue. The people that have those valuable permits, they make sure the illegal operators are found out. So there is an upside to this. Joey receives, was it 15 businesses? He'll have 15 new compliance officers out there on the water in the harbor. So that's one of the things that we will, that will be an end result of the moratorium process. Lance.
No, I was just going to add, I did get to sit in on the Harbor CRA Advisory Committee meeting last week, and they sounded very confident in the motion that they made. I don't know that we absolutely have to take it back to them. They sounded like they were ready to move. That would be one step we could eliminate to speed the process up if that's what council wanted to do.
That was their motion they brought to us, wasn't it? There you go, Ms. Bess. We'll hear it straight from the boss's mouth.
Yeah, he's exactly correct. We did make that motion a very strong motion, and you all are coming to the same conclusion we came to. We need a moratorium so that we can do a capacity study, because there's just no way we can do that study as long as we have people, and our faith is in Joey. I don't think we need to wait to have the moratorium for him to do his job. He's going to have a big job anyway, because the study that Chatham was talking about, my husband and I personally walked the docks yesterday. We found 115 boats that are not registered under companies' names. We found an additional 115 thereabouts. I don't have my study in front of me, of extra boats that belong to registered folks, but they have not gotten license for them. So we're talking about an additional 250 boats minimum of over and above the 350 that he's talking about. So no, you don't have to come back to us. We don't need that. Our thing that we said that Lance picked up on was time is of the essence. Our season is starting, and we need to get this under control.
Would you share your report with Joey, just so he has an idea?
Yeah, I'll be glad to. In fact, I came by the other day and you weren't there. So I'll bring it back. All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Any
Ms.
other
Ness.
questions?
Any other questions from council? Thank you so much. That's what you call shedding light onto a situation. All right, so that knocks out a couple weeks right there. All right, so we'll just rely on all of you to draft an ordinance for our first reading. I guess you'll have it ready for our next meeting 2 weeks from now, correct?
Yep, that will be April 1st.
April 1st. Okay. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? No, no, yes. Steve made the motion. All right, seeing no further discussion. Ayes have it. So moved. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next up, we have an update from Mr. Zunguzzi related to the workshop that was held by council and the follow-up actions that were taken by council at the next meeting. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Zunguzzi.
Okay. Thank you, Lance, and Mayor and council members. Let me first thank you so much for the solid direction that you provided to staff during your March 4th meeting. I think in my presentation during the workshop, I'd said to you, this is probably the most substantive discussions that as director that I would have with you, City Council. And I think you heard me loud and clear, and you were very direct with respect to what we need to do to align our future land use map and our zoning map. Just to recap, the action that you took on the 4th, you indicated that you needed to see the zoning map brought into compliance with our future land use map, with the exception of areas 7 and 15 that we needed to discuss further. You also indicated that you needed to see the land use development code updated to include all the amendments that have taken place in our comprehensive plan. You also wanted the actual creation of the Calhoun mixed-use village zoning district, which currently is simply a name with no requirements. And then fourthly, you wanted us to take another look at the town center mixed-use zoning district with respect to looking at compatibility issues as well as transitions between uses of intensity and those that are less intense, creating bufferings and perhaps additional setbacks. And fifthly, you indicated that you wanted to see some discussion and perhaps a reduction in the densities with respect to the TCMU zoning district and the classification that's in our comprehensive plan. And I think this was a direct result of the two projects that you have reviewed recently, and you wanted that to kind of better reflect what your wishes are in the comprehensive plan. As a result of that, I wanted to show and get your reaction. As I indicated, this is an important task that we have, and so the land use attorney and I and Lance, we caucused and came up with the following outline of the steps that we think we'll need to take to get those actions accomplished. And we want to do this as expeditiously as we possibly can because of the importance of the matter. So I've identified essentially about 4 phases that we're going to go through to get your actions accomplished. First, in short order, we're going to be going to the local planning agency and presenting the new Calhoun mixed-use village district. And that is scheduled for this Thursday before that agency. And second, as part of that phase 1, we're going to also present before the local planning agency our proposed town center mixed-use tweaks, so to speak, those adjustments that you've asked us to do. And in the spirit of making sure that we do this properly, we have also going to declare a pending ordinance statutory parameter. So that gives us an opportunity to freeze all projects that might come our way whilst we're addressing that ordinance. Phase 2, or phase 1 continued, we're also going to come to you and get some guidance and direction regarding what we need to do with areas 7 and 15, so that we have a sense of closure on that, on those 2 areas. And then equally seek direction as far as densities. I think you are not quite settled in that arena as well. And here it's because we couldn't do this right away because the densities and issues of height are called out in the comprehensive plan. And so those will need to be addressed as part of the effort we'll do when we update the comprehensive plan. Going to phase 2, we're going to be looking at bringing forward a package of all the parcels that we don't have a disagreement on, except for 7 and 15. Everything else I think we got agreement on. We're going to bring those for rezoning, essentially aligning those parcels with our future land use map. And then the third phase, we're going to be amending our comprehensive plan to incorporate whatever we end up with for the TCMU designation. And also, as I indicated in my presentation during the workshop, per state requirement, we have to update our coastal element. And we'll do that at the same time. And then finally, we're going to include in those changes to the comp plan what we decide as far as areas 7 and 15. And the fourth phase will essentially be a wrap-up of all these efforts. Number 1 will be the comprehensive effort to update our land use code. And second, we'll also be updating our impact fee. As you know, our impact fee is composed of transportation facilities, parks, library facilities, and the police. And hopefully when everything is said and done, by this time next year, we'll have an updated comprehensive plan, an updated land use code, an updated impact fee schedule. And for me, that will represent clarity to our residents and the development community, and also predictability in our processes. Essentially, one of the most clarifying and satisfying effort in my tenure here in the city. I'll take any questions that you may have.
First up, Mr. Marlar.
Thank you, Mayor. Lewis, Ms. Cobb and I had a conversation about number 15, the commercial general area. Kim, what I'm looking at is that one of the reasons that was changed, as a matter of fact, it was Mr. Destin the Elder, Parker's father, that was one of the ones that we changed it back then, because we already had similar properties on both sides. You had a furniture store on one side, and there was already a warehouse and stuff on the other side. There was also some of the restrictions that are not allowed in commercial general. A lot of the commercial general and ROI are the same, but there's a couple of restrictions in that, and my understanding is we're going to change it from commercial general back to ROI, or is it ROI now?
No, I think what we're going to do, and what Lewis was explaining, was that we're going to come back to council probably at one of the next two meetings, and ask for that direction, but be able to provide you with more information at that time, because the council didn't give us that specific direction yet. You just pulled those two out of the ones that we were administratively rezoning in that package.
Okay, because one of the reasons that we did it way back when, and that it was in commercial general, was so that it would comply with the properties on each side, so we wouldn't have any objections to the same like businesses. As I said, we have a storage facility on one side of that property, and then there's a furniture store and a couple of other outlets on the other side and across the street, although that cross the street's in the county, but it would be conforming. So, but that will come back to us. Okay.
Yeah, that will come back, because you all pulled it just for further discussion without a decision yet as to what you were going to do with it.
Okay.
And because of the history that he just brought up, probably need to document that when we come back and start that discussion. If you guys could provide that for us, what it was before, or what the rationale was behind it.
Sure, thanks.
Based on past council decisions. Also, I think outside of zoning changes, we can address certain issues just through the LDC, right? Limiting certain things that way versus rezoning completely. Is that a possibility to give us that option as well?
I think I understand your question, and the answer is yes, as long as it's not inconsistent with the comprehensive plan.
I'd recommend you give us those options as well. Just equip the council and myself with all the information that we need. When you're pulling individual properties out of areas that are zoned a certain way, we got to be able to justify all our decisions. So that helps.
We'll come to you with all of the options, absolutely.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Morgan.
Thanks. Lewis, how long till we get to phase 3? The TCMU changes.
Well, we're going to start TCMU changes this Thursday.
Okay.
But the more substantive ones that you were perhaps referring to, density-wise, you're talking about this phase, which is the density aspect.
Yeah.
Probably, I would say, maybe June, July.
And that's when you'll begin, or we'll start seeing changes develop?
We'll come to you first.
Sure.
Have a discussion, and then we'll go to the LPA to begin the process for the change.
Thanks.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. The property that Mr. Marlar was concerned about, number 15, is Bobby Guitry's property. Where is 7 at? Where's that number 7?
7 is the one that was part of the church, and the other part of the church was zoned something different than the parking lot.
Is that the one on Main Street?
Destin United Methodist.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone want to have any other questions? Thank you for your report, sir. Looking forward to it. So's our builders and developers and stuff like that. So make life easier for everyone, especially you. All right. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few quick announcements. Wanted to let council know that we have contracted with an individual to help us with the coyote problem in Destin. Mr. Warren has been working with the folks at the state park, so that we're actually partnering on this. So if they're trying to run back and forth, the same gentleman is going to be in charge of both projects, which should help us. So I appreciate him and making the effort to do that. This Saturday, 10 a.m., the Pooch-Palooza is going to be held at our dog park behind this property right here. It's the annual fundraiser for the Friends of the Dog Park. The funds generated have been used for many projects over the years, including new turf, pavers, new benches, trees, several projects that the proceeds from this event have funded. So if you can, please come out for that event. On April the 12th, this is a little bit out in the future, we're planning on a Staff Appreciation Day, and we held one last year. It was very well received by the staff. We're looking for a council consensus that we can proceed with this again and shut our offices down for the afternoon so that we can hold this event for our staff.
Nobody's going to push back against that. And we plan on coming and eating ourselves. So
Yep.
You got it. That takes care of your city manager report, sir? Or do you
That
have
is
more?
it. I appreciate Mr. Braden adding that other item to the consent agenda. I'd be happy to answer any questions on it when we get there.
Seeing none, I'll take a motion for the consent agenda.
Second.
We got a motion, we got a second. Seeing no further discussion. Votes unanimous, so moved. We don't have any public hearings, so we're done with that. And Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. Got one request from city staff. The unassigned fund balance, can council get a copy of the unassigned fund balance from 2012 to 2018, please?
I'll get it together and have it sent to you through the clerk's office.
Thank you. Just need those figures. I don't need any, the whole report or anything. Just
No,
the figures.
that's fine. I'll get it.
Thank you. Lance, is there anything that we can do as far as, I don't know, to hiring an arborist? Because I believe we have several trees, pine trees in the dog park that's dying, and I believe there's Indian Bayou had to take some trees out because beetles was killing them. They're turning yellow and dying. Is that something we could maybe get somebody to look at to see if that's what's going on? Because we're just going to continue to lose trees.
Absolutely. I just wasn't aware. Yeah, we can get somebody out there. We had that happen at some of our Keller Park a couple of years back. We had the beetle infestation there.
Yeah.
Had to cut out the diseased trees. So I appreciate the heads
I
up.
appreciate it if you could look at that. That's all I got, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Ms. Ramswell.
Sure. The first thing I'd like to do is appoint Mr. Jim Wood to the Public Works and Public Safety Committee.
I'll second that.
We got a motion, we got a second. Any further discussion? Everyone knows Jim Riley well. Let's go ahead and vote. Ayes have it, so moved. Congratulations.
Thank you. And then I have two quick things. One of them is there has been a downed sign right here between the annex and City Hall for a while. Can y'all look into getting that repaired? And then the other thing I wanted to mention, and I'm not sure who to direct it to, perhaps Captain Nix when he returns. I'd like some information on Airport Road and whether most of the accidents on that curve occur on eastbound or westbound, or whether it's equal opportunity. And then that's all I have.
Ms. Ramswell, I can get you that information. We looked at it about 2 months ago when Joey asked me for the information, and believe it or not, it was about equal both ways. We were trying to determine which way to put up a warning sign at that time, and it was pretty much equal both ways, but I can get you the exact numbers.
Great, thanks.
Radar flashers are working. Man, wreck then.
But nobody reads them.
Yeah, but it still scares the poo out of them when them red and blue lights turn on. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor. I have several things. At the last meeting, I didn't know if I was going to be here, and I thanked everybody and told everybody what an honor it is, and I want to thank everybody again. And it's an honor to be here and work with this team as we move the city forward. If you remember, about a month ago, I said if I was lucky enough to get elected, the first thing I was going to do is have a meet and greet. And that's the first thing I'm going to do. I met with the city manager. He asked me to brief you all on it. Basically, what we're going to do, date to be determined in April. The city staff, myself, are going to host a, if you will, constituent get-together, meet and greet or something, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon for an hour to allow our citizens to come. They're not going to have to worry about a timer. They can just discuss ideas and issues, and it's just a good way. As we know, our city staff's doing a great job. It's just another step forward to get with the public. So that's a work in progress. As far as any kind of schedule, maybe we'll do it quarterly, and if some other council member wants to do it, they can take the next one. But I'm looking forward to having the first one. Want to make sure that's okay with everybody. Okay. All right. Second thing, you all will hear from me. Jim Wood was infamous on traffic, and I guess I'm going to be doing the same thing. Highway 98 is got some issues. At Airport Road, at the turn lane on Airport, to turn from 98 to Airport, that left turn lane, there's inches in between the lanes of traffic. That's an accident waiting to happen. They've got to do something. We're going to have that.
You're talking about the eastbound?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the turning bay only allows 2 to 3 vehicles.
Correct. Okay, but the actual distance in between that lane and whatnot is significant. That's something we have to do. The other thing is, I realize 98 is a work in progress. There's a lot of construction, but many of the intersections have the permanent mast arms put on there with the traffic lights, and they did not put the street signs back up. Okay? We need to have the street signs that I work so hard to get back up, put back up. Okay? I realize some of these things are temporary. The third thing, for example, at Gulf Shore in 98, you can't read Gulf Shore, it's so faded out. I'd like to see if city staff could get with the county. They were gracious enough before to make the signs for us, install them at no charge. We're not talking about anything fancy, no decorative anything, just a plain green and white traffic sign. Benning Drive, it's starting to peel off. Just take a look at the major intersections along 98 and see if we can get that done. Okay? I realize some of the intersections have temporary poles. We can't do that. But on some of these other poles, they're permanent now. They're the new ones, and we need to get the signs back up. That's all I have, and thank you.
Hey, Mr. Mitchell. Your turn. Mr. Overdeer.
Tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Marlar.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Mr. Morgan.
Nothing tonight.
City Attorney. Land Use Attorney.
Nothing, thank you.
We go backwards. Let's start going this way.
Ladies first. I do have one item, though, and that is the East Pass dredge, specifically the administrative action. On Friday afternoon, the attorneys for the city, myself and Ken Ortel, the county, and FDEP had a conference call to discuss the legal challenges facing the county and the city as it relates to dredging the East Pass, and to determine the best route forward. We collectively came to the agreement that the best path forward at this time is for the city to resolve the permit challenges facing it from the Sherrys in that administrative action. So I would just ask for a general motion from council to allow us to proceed with the litigation in that matter.
So moved.
Yeah.
Second.
We've got a specific motion.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Go ahead. We got a specific motion. Thank you, guys. Hold on.
I move to direct the city attorney and special counsel Kevin Ortel to proceed with litigation in OGC case number 18-1463, John Donovan, David Sherry, and Rebecca Sherry versus the city of Destin, and take all other actions reasonably related to clearing all challenges to the city's East Pass dredging permits.
Second.
I got a motion, I got a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none? Vote is unanimous, so moved. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight.
Mr. Mayor, I have one quick comment related to that subject. I just wanted the council to know that I signed off on an extension agreement with Taylor Engineering related to the dredging. And just wanted to let you know under our emergency order that I had that authority to do that, but wanted you to be aware.
And also, all of us, Kyle, myself, and Lance, and trying to negotiate with the county, we're doing everything we can to be good partners with them, but I think consensus-wise amongst us, we're going to do everything to put the city of Destin with their own permit back in control of what happens with Destin's East Pass and what happens with Reach 1 and Reach 2 in the future. So we're going to keep working to that end, and we'll keep this council in the loop as we progress forward. Any further comment? Anyone else? Seeing none? Meeting adjourned.